On Tuesday, the 23rd of May 1990, a rare typhoon hits the Gulf of Thailand, capsizing the drill ship Seacrest. 91 of the 97 crew members don't survive. A series of upgrades and calculations are called into question. The Unocal Corporation is an American petroleum company. It has its roots dating back to the late 19th century. Headquartered in El Segundo, California, it plays an important role in both domestic and global energy projects. Unocal is a key member of the CENTgas consortium. They're tasked with constructing the Trans-Afghanistan pipeline, connecting the Caspian area through Afghanistan to the Indian Ocean. The project is complicated following the Taliban siege of Kabul in 1996, but Unocal finds a way to work with the Taliban to build the pipeline. In August 2005, Unocal merges its entire upstream petroleum business with Chevron, making Unocal a wholly owned subsidiary. Although Unocal ceases operations as an independent entity, it continues to execute numerous activities under the banner of Union Oil Company of California, now a Chevron company. Drillship Seacrest is named the Scan Queen when it's built and later changes to Seacrest. It's constructed by Far East Livingston Shipbuilding Limited in Singapore, owned by the Unocal Corporation and operated by Great Eastern Drilling and Engineering Company. It's registered in Panama and completed in 1977. The ship measures 110 meters in length, 21 meters in beam, and draws 7 meters below the waterline. In adherence to Mobile Offshore Drilling Unit or MODU code requirements, the ship has lifeboats and life-saving equipment to safeguard the entire crew. SOLAS, or Safety of Life at Sea regulations at the time, specify there must be lifeboats for the full crew on either side of the vessel. When it's launched, Seacrest uses a Kelly and rotary table positioned at the drill floor's center to grip and rotate the drill string. The drill string passes through the Kelly, which grips and rotates the drill string on the rotary table. Seacrest has been operating in the Gulf of Thailand since 1981, drilling gas wells for Unocal. When drilling, the ship is moored over the well site by 8 anchors distributed around the ship. Each anchor weighs 14 tons and is connected to the ship by wire cables, 50 millimeters thick and over 2,000 meters long. In the summer of 1989, Seacrest undergoes a maintenance and upgrade program. All of the anchor cables are replaced with new cables and the drilling system is upgraded. The upgrade extends and reinforces the derrick to support a top drive. The large top drive DC motor is mounted on guardrails in the derrick. The drill string is suspended and rotated from above. After these modifications to Seacrest, the stability of the rig is recalculated and the calculations are approved by the American Bureau of Shipping, or ABS. Adding a top drive drill system has pushed the center of gravity up. In order to lower the center of gravity and make the vessel more stable, an oil tank on deck is converted into a drill water tank and 2 void spaces are converted into oil tanks. The rig isn't surveyed after the maintenance and upgrades, and it doesn't have a stability test to confirm the center of gravity calculations. It's sent straight back into the Gulf of Thailand to continue drilling. In the Gulf of Thailand, drillship Seacrest has been riding the outskirts of a tropical storm since Tuesday, the 31st of October 1989. It's anchored and drilling in the Platong field. Thailand's military and marine weather forecasts joined forces with a private weather service to supply information about the storm to Unocal's local partner, Mitsui Oil Exploration Company. They accurately anticipate the storm's path towards the Seacrest's operational zone. The superintendent ignores the severe storm warnings and tells his team there hasn't been a typhoon for 50 years in the Gulf of Thailand, so keep working. On Tuesday, the 2nd of November, drilling operations continue while the storm intensifies. By 1200, the storm is on the horizon, approximately 70 miles southeast of Seacrest, with winds at the ship reaching a steady 25 knots, occasionally gusting to 38 knots. Its strength increases throughout the day leading up to Friday, the 3rd of November. Unocal doesn't share the information about the approaching typhoon with Seacrest. It's been over 4 decades since a typhoon originated in the Gulf of Thailand. It's not very common. Typically, typhoons form outside the Gulf, which gives more lead time to gauge their intensity and trajectory. There's a sudden surge in the storm's power near the Platong field during the morning of Friday the 3rd of November. As it nears Seacrest, the weather evolves into a raging typhoon. And Seacrest doesn't have the capability to access marine weather forecasts. UNOCL has removed the radio equipment from Seacrest needed to monitor weather services. Instead, the ship's captain gets a daily weather fax from UNOCL headquarters in Bangkok, which is sent to the company's executive on board. The fax is a general weather report and not the specialized marine weather forecast that the Thai military have shared with UNOCL. Instead, UNOCL sends the daily report from the Meteorological Department of Thailand in Bangkok, which focuses on the inland weather. Typically, a typhoon will dissipate once it makes land, so the report underplays the strength of the typhoon at sea. On the 3rd of November, the drill pipe has reached a depth of 1,130 meters. At 2400, the superintendent finally gives the orders for drilling activities to be shut down. At 0100, winds and the sea state build significantly. By 0300, the drill pipe in the drill hole is hanging on the lower rams, which is where it can be cut off in an emergency. But the rig workers don't have time to drill the 27-meter length of drill pipe that remains upright in the derrick. They're forced to leave the heavy pipe in the derrick with the top drive at the top of the derrick, shifting the center of gravity to its highest point. At 0430, the support vessel Grey Guard releases from its mooring buoy and initiates evasive maneuvers to avoid hitting Seacrest in the swell and wind. At 0530, the riser is ripped out of its mooring, adding to the mounting challenges. The riser is the section of infrastructure under the water that helps provide buoyancy to the drill string. The support vessel Grey Guard gets permission to leave the field. At 0945, Seacrest loses anchor cables 3, 6, 7, and 8. With no tension left on cables 4 and 5, the vessel's stability hinges on anchors 1 and 2. From 0955 to 1040, radio communications are intermittent because of a loss of power. Support vessels in the area can see that Seacrest maintains its position. At 1000, UNOCL establishes an emergency center in Bangkok to provide assistance to its fleet of vessels. Lookouts stationed on the Platong platform prepare for a potential sea rescue. At 1016, Seacrest establishes contact with Bangkok, which advises releasing all cables and maintaining one anchor while steering into the weather. Storm position updates are relayed to the rig by Bangkok. Seacrest tells Bangkok that the situation is stabilizing despite water getting into the standby generator room. Wind speeds are up to 85 knots. At 1100, the company executive on Seacrest reports that the vessel is holding onto number 1 anchor cable and the ship's thrusters are working at maximum capacity. Then Seacrest reports they've lost number 2 anchor and cables 4 and 5 are slack, leaving only number 1 anchor holding. Bangkok advises the ship that if the number 1 anchor cable breaks, they should release cables 4 and 5. At 1217, the eye of the storm passes directly over Seacrest. But Seacrest reports they've lost number 1 anchor and the ship is listing 5 degrees to port because some drill gear has shifted. Seawater has inundated the mudroom and several compartments across the ship have sustained damage. They compensate by adjusting the levels of drilling mud. Crew members in the aft quarters are worried about getting caught below deck if the rig floods. They try to get out onto the aft deck. As the rig rolls and waves crash over the deck, men desperately cling to the railings and scramble to hold their footing. Kent Nolan, one of the crew, uses a fire hose to create a lifeline for men to hold onto. This lifeline allows the crew to leave the aft quarters and hold themselves on deck. At 1250, Seacrest tries to contact the drill ship Robre T4, but the message isn't received. At 1326, Seacrest sends its final communication. A 5-degree list to port and the drill pipe has dislodged. The search and rescue effort is overseen by UNOCL and the Thai Navy. UNOCL has no emergency response plan in place, so they improvise as they go. They recruit helicopters, boats and divers into the rescue operation. On Saturday, the 4th of November, a helicopter locates the capsized wreck, floating inverted about 4 nautical miles from the well site. Divers enter the wreck searching for any trapped crew, while supply boats and helicopters scour the surrounding waters for potential survivors. The divers find 2 bodies on the ship's bridge, but no survivors. By Sunday, the 5th of November, UNOCL supply boats and helicopters have covered a vast area, approximately a 30-mile radius from Seacrest. The search area is defined by the United States National Search and Rescue Manual. No survivors are found. Between the 5th and 6th of November, Thai fishing boats and the Thai Navy find 6 survivors in 2 separate groups, almost 70 miles northwest of Seacrest. Now, UNOCL ignore the US Search and Rescue Manual and work out the trajectory of where any survivors could be drifting, factoring in wave, wind and currents under the typhoon conditions. The calculations show that the survivors drift further and faster in the first 24 hours than the initial 30 nautical mile search radius. UNOCL redirects its search efforts to this region. 4 Thai survivors sue UNOCL for personal injuries, and the families of lost crew members pursue wrongful death claims. They focus on 2 primary causes. Firstly, they hold UNOCL responsible for not evacuating non-essential personnel and preparing the Seacrest for heavy weather in advance of an approaching tropical cyclone, based on available marine forecasts. Secondly, they claim UNOCL failed to ensure the ship's seaworthiness in its drilling mode while using anchor moorings and leaving drill pipe in the derrick, which directly led to the top-heavy vessel capsizing. As part of its defense strategy, UNOCL Thailand's legal team engages a private company called Failure Analysis Associates Incorporated, or FAAA. FAAA conducts a comprehensive investigation into the events surrounding the ship's loss. The FAAA's investigation encompasses the ship's physical condition and design, weather effects, search and rescue efforts, and safety protocols. The Thai survivors aren't interviewed, and their testimony isn't considered during the company's investigation. The company doesn't look at the marine forecasts provided by the Thai military to UNOCL leading up to the storm. They conduct an in-depth stability review and conclude that the ship conforms to the American Bureau of Shipping standards, and that the modification of the ship to include a top drive unit has improved stability because of the conversion of the drill water and oil tanks, which add to the ballast as part of the modifications. But they do also note that they don't find any records of ABS calculations or certification related to the ship's stability after the top drive modifications. They also find that UNOCL have made errors in their calculations for the moment the ship will overturn in wind. Despite the errors in calculations and lack of testing, their final report says that at the time the ship capsizes, it's operating within acceptable standards for stability. Then they highlight that the ship's operation manual has instructions which allow the ship's vertical center of gravity to exceed acceptable limits, potentially reducing stability. Nevertheless, FAAA says that's not relevant because in day-to-day operations, the ship stays below the maximum allowable vertical center of gravity before the capsize. The FAAA reports that most crew members gather on the main deck near abandoned ship stations, but the survivors say most crew gathered on the aft deck. FAAA concludes that the ship appears to handle the seas and wind satisfactorily, until it encounters larger waves that contribute to the capsize. The survivors disagree, saying the ship struggled with the wind and waves leading to Seacrest capsizing. FAAA recommended that a lawsuit is unfounded. UNOCL hired FAAA to investigate the accident. Even though they uncovered shortcomings in the design, stability calculations, and operations manual, they still recommend that Seacrest was seaworthy under the letter of the law. If they'd been hired by the victims, I wonder if their recommendation would be the same. After extensive negotiations in Houston, Texas, UNOCL reaches a settlement with the families of those who died, avoiding a trial and settling all their claims. Kent Nolan, who rigged a lifeline for the crew, died on the ship's bridge with the master when the Seacrest capsized. Divers find the ship's battery-operated clock. It reads 13:50, the time the Seacrest capsized.